Pro-Cannabis Media and PCM TV programming is supported by Revolutionary Clinics in Massachusetts, the #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 accounting solution for the cannabis industry. And by TCP's Style Lighting Grow Kit, all you need to grow.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of Green Rush Live, this time on location in New York City. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and we'll have amazing interviews for you over the next couple of hours here on Pro Cannabis Media. A reminder again to please like, share, and subscribe to all of our content on the network. And we're so proud to have a weekly news show called We Talk News that follows this live stream at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Every third Friday of every month, we're able to sit down and talk a little bit with what's going on in Washington, D.C. with our friend Morgan Fox, now with the NORML organization. Morgan, great to see you again.
Hey, Jimmy, great to see you as always.
All right. So obviously, it's early in the day at MJ Unpacked, obviously. This was obviously recorded earlier, but we are live streaming it now. And it must be good for someone who is in the trenches in D.C. and still knowing that the cannabis industry is alive and well and growing thanks to trade shows like this and entrepreneurial spirit and the passion for the cause.
Absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, it's an excellent sign that the stigma around cannabis is steadily eroding. And I think that we're more lawmakers able to see the type of shows that you're at right now. I think that things would probably move a little bit faster. So maybe that's something I can help facilitate in the near future.
Well, everybody's eyeing every little movement in Washington, D.C., sticking it under a microscope and seeing, does this mean federal reform is coming soon? And I guess the latest inkling that something might be brewing is, I guess, the Department of Justice this week urged the Supreme Court of the United States to not rule on any of the cases that are on their docket having anything to do with cannabis because they feel that federal laws will be changing. I'm sure there's more to this story. Is there anything you can enlighten us on?
Not particularly. It's pretty cut and dry. Although, I don't necessarily know exactly what their motivations are beyond what they actually said publicly. But honestly, I think that it's potentially good considering that we might be getting laws changed very soon, not to start setting precedent that might potentially impact the ability to change those laws.
So what's the latest, Morgan? We know Chuck Schumer has said, okay, now it's going to be August. He also was at I'm pretty sure it was at the New York City parade a couple of weeks ago, celebrating cannabis in the pouring cold rain, and talked about actually getting some Republican senators to at least talk to him. Is it really that difficult for one side of the aisle to talk to the other side of the aisle about this issue?
Pretty much about every issue these days. But to tell you the truth, I don't think it's necessarily an issue of not being able to get Republicans to engage on this issue, but more of Schumer's team wanting to get a little bit more feedback from committee leaders and his Democratic colleagues before presenting something and getting more feedback from Republicans. But that being said, I'm sure that Republicans are paying much more attention to this as well as to cannabis policy reform generally, particularly as we get closer to the midterms. And honestly, while we see a lot of Republicans start parroting the Mitch McConnell lines every time Democrats include anything related to cannabis in larger legislation. I think that's partially out of concern that Democrats could get in terms of a bump in the midterms. So, and in some cases, maybe a desire to take leadership of this issue if the House or the Senate flips.
So I was chatting with an attorney, connected attorney to the cannabis industry yesterday, and we had a little chit chat about the Cole memo, the famous Cole memo that pretty much was put out there under the Obama administration, I'm pretty sure, and then rescinded by Jeff Sessions under that other administration. And he thinks that there actually might be a reinstatement of that Cole memo as part of reform. Have you heard anything like that?
So I think that there are several things that need to happen. I mean, first of all, since the Cole memo was rescinded in 2018, in practical terms, we haven't really seen that much of a difference in enforcement patterns from before when the Cole memo was a official policy. But I think that a lot of folks in the industry as well as consumers would really prefer to see that in writing, even though it's just a policy and doesn't have the force of law. Having it be an official statement and official guidance for federal attorneys, I think would make people rest a lot easier. From my discussions with the Department of Justice, as well as Department of Interior and other people that are really close to the issue, I don't think that there's going to be reinstatement of the Cole or Wilkinson memos unless directed to do so by President Biden. And this is clearly not a priority issue for him. Even though since we last spoke, he pardoned a few people with marijuana convictions and granted some clemency. It's a drop in the bucket and woefully inadequate, but at least it's moving in the right direction. That being said, I don't think that the administration is quite there yet to start going out of its way to direct the Department of Justice to reinstate the Cole memo. However, depending on what the appropriations process looks like, which is really kind of wrapping up at this point, I expect to see language introduced, at least as an amendment, that would explicitly direct the Department of Justice to release an official statement about its policies regarding state compliant or tribal compliant cannabis behavior.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, there was a pretty big news item this week that did have some federal implications to it in an odd way. That this company, Bright Green Corporation, went public on NASDAQ. And supposedly the DEA has given this company the opportunity to at least build a facility to grow cannabis in New Mexico for federal research. And this was the first time that the DEA actually offered this to another operation besides the old University of Mississippi deal that's been in place for decades. And we know that was kind of laughed at by the industry. This is a company, according to Deborah Borchardt, who's my go-to source on these kinds of things. This is a company that has no revenue, and yet they were able to raise a lot of money in a bear market on the stock market. I know you're familiar, you must be familiar with this story. Is this another sign, however, that the DEA actually understands that, yes, we have to have better quality cannabis for research purposes?
Well, I mean, the DEA has been saying for years that they were going to start fast tracking approval for additional producers for research purposes. The fact that they're finally getting around to do it, I suppose, is a good sign. Not knowing enough beyond the article that you read about this company, I can't necessarily say if they're particularly deserving of this this application or this grant, but I think that hopefully we will see additional licenses and additional dispensations being granted in the near future. And if they're not, then we really need to hold the DEA accountable, because they've been continuously upping their request quota without providing the means to actually do it. Maybe that could get fast tracked as well when the conference committee for the House and Senate research bills are able to come up with a reconciliation bill for that. But I think that that's probably a few months away.
There you go. Taking a look at some of the states, there was definitely a snag and a roadblock in New Hampshire where they thought they might be able to get a cannabis bill in place for adult use, and then finally a committee shot it down in their Senate. And Delaware, it doesn't look like now that's going to move forward. Is there anything to read in between the lines on either of those, or is it just individual states still dealing with the stigma and the challenges of moving forward with legalization or decriminalization?
Well, New Hampshire has been kind of a unique animal and a longstanding, frustrating, and confusing issue. The fact that representatives of the live free or die state seem to be taking it as a point of honor that they're an island in the middle of a sea of sensible cannabis policy reform laws. I think that that's really going to take a change in what the New Hampshire legislature looks like. Unfortunately, it's kind of huge, so that could be pretty difficult. But I'm sure that the folks on the ground are already strategizing for ways to do that before the next legislative session, wherever possible. as far as Delaware goes, that was kind of a tricky situation to begin with. Again, pretty unique. In my experience, I'd never seen a bill get split up like that on the same, basically the same session, and basically using one to horse trade against the other. It's pretty fascinating. We've been hearing some talk about how if this doesn't, if the regulation bill doesn't pass, then folks are going to try to veto the possession bill, which did pass. I tend to think that is a little bit of a stretch. I think that might be just something that lawmakers are saying because they want to try to put extra pressure to pass the regulation bill, which they should. But, at the very least, I think that it's possible that some form of compromise is possible in Delaware in the near future going forward. So hopefully we won't have too much longer to wait in that state. But in terms of national significance, I think that it's kind of indicative that the issue of cannabis policy reform and legalization has gotten a lot more complicated as people learn more about it. And as states are able to look at what has happened elsewhere and start looking at a lot more of the details of the legislation, rather than having it be relatively simple as it had been in the past. And the fact that lawmakers seem to be pretty engaged on details, while occasionally frustrating, I think overall is a good sign.
And any impact of the fact that this is President Biden's home state and they're afraid to maybe upset their native son?
If that's the reason why things are moving slowly, it's the first I've heard of it. In terms of the potential benefit of that, honestly, I think it would be huge. If President Biden on a weekly basis is going back and forth between two jurisdictions where cannabis is legal, it definitely creates an opportunity to put a little bit more pressure on him.
There you go. Hey, Morgan Fox from the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, our favorite lobbyist in Washington, D.C. I so appreciate talking with you every third Friday of every month. And please keep up the good work, Morgan.
Thanks, Jimmy. Talk to you soon.
You bet. And we are going to take our first break now on Green Rush Live. And I can tell you, you want to stay tuned until the final interview, because I'm sitting down with a woman named Tanya Griffin from Oh Yes Love. And yes, we're talking about that three-letter word that, as she says, anybody who's interested in sex should check out her products. We'll have that after our regular 420 salute through Jonathan Edwards and Shanti. Back with more Green Rush Live from MJ Unpacked in New York after this.
Hi, my name's Tai Chang. I'm the president and founder of Aloha Green Apothecary in Hawaii. We're a vertically integrated medical cannabis company with 3 dispensaries, 1 extraction lab, and 1 cultivation center near the North Shore of Oahu. We have over 150 employees now, and we've been working with Adaptive HR to meet our human resource needs. We're super excited to work with them as we expand, and we've grown at least 2-3 times over the last 2 years. So we look forward to a good relationship with Adaptive, and come visit us in Hawaii anytime. Aloha.
Weed Talk and In the Weeds are 2 productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Difference is building a solution for that individual, not just a custom, here's a box, here's a video, here's how you make your VMS. We custom design and custom build every situation for exactly what the customer needs. And we keep the costs low. We have multiple tiers, as far as what you're looking at on the cost side of things. If you want a one-time, where you just pay one initial cost, we have that. If you want to maintain your system and have the highest protection and highest capabilities and highest upgrades at all times, we have different plans for you. But we scale it so it's scalable and affordable 100%.
Hey, you want to grow your own plants? Check out Style Lighting's Grow Kit. It has everything you need to become an expert home grower and bring the power of the sun indoors. Style Lighting uses TCP's high-powered commercial LEDs that deliver twice the output in the market. The Grow Kit has a grow bag, a timer, chains to hang the light, and of course the best in the business lighting system by TCP. Check out stylelighting.shop for more information. Pro Cannabis Media programming is available live and on demand on our Facebook page at Pro Canna Media, on Instagram at Pro Cannabis Media, on LinkedIn also at Pro Cannabis Media, on YouTube and YouTube Live on Pro Cannabis Media, Twitter at Pro Canna Media, and on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So like, share, and subscribe to all of our content, newsletters, and shows live or on demand.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.